With a little bit of advanced prep, it's really easy to pull together a menu that's deceptively delicious. On today's episode, I'm going to show you how to make a Middle Eastern inspired feast paired with a classic dessert reimagined. Whoever you serve this to is going to love it. One of my favorite takeout foods, I don't order it often, mind you, but when I do, it's shawarma. I love that combination of Middle Eastern flavors, the chicken, the spices, everything is just so great. So today I'm going to show you how easy it is to make at home. We're going to start by making a marinade for the chicken. So into my jar, I'm going to add some freshly squeezed lemon juice and then all the spices that make it so special. First, some cayenne. And you can adjust the heat depending on your preference. Cinnamon, which always surprises people, but it's an essential part of that flavor profile. Then some turmeric for nice color and flavor. A healthy dose of smoked paprika, which is one of my favorite spices to use. Also a generous amount of cumin. And last, some salt and pepper. To that, we're going to add some freshly squeezed garlic, freshly pressed. And again, if you really like things garlicky, go ahead and add some more. It's always a good idea to shake your spices with your acid in any kind of a vinaigrette or marinade because they won't dissolve very well once the oil's been added in. So now we're just going to take the lid off. You can mix this in a bowl, but I find jars are just so much easier, and then you just pop them right in the dishwasher when you're done. And now we've got our olive oil. And that's it. That's how simple it is to make this delicious marinade. We'll give it another shake. And that's it, it's done. So now we're gonna take our boneless, skinless chicken breasts and put them in a Ziploc bag. You could also do this in a broad, shallow baking dish. Just try to avoid one that's metal because the lemon juice might react. When you buy boneless, skinless chicken, it's a good idea to check them over first to make sure there's no little rogue bits of bone hiding on the bottom. And it doesn't matter what size they are. These ones happen to be particularly large. You just want to have the right volume of meat for the number of people that you're trying to serve. I usually suggest about 1/4 pound per person. So we've got our chicken in there, and we're just going to add the marinade on top. And then you're going to put it in the fridge, and you want it to rest for at least, I would say, about 12 hours if you can. Overnight is great, or up to even 48 hours. So it's one of those steps that just takes a moment, but then you're well on your way towards a delicious meal. Once you seal the bag, it's a good idea just to give the chicken a little massage, make it all happy before it goes into the fridge. Get it well coated. And you can tell just by looking through the bag when it's evenly coated. So there we go. And we're just going to put things out on the sheet. I usually try to arrange it with the chicken on the outside edges and the onions in the middle so that they're buffered from some of the heat. And you'll notice that I've left the little bits of fat on the chicken. That just adds to the flavor. Normally when you buy boneless, skinless breasts, or thighs rather, there's not too much extra fat on there. So you just want to lay them out in a single layer. And then put the onions in the middle. And if there's really big pieces, you can break them in half. I'm not going to pour it out of the bag because we don't want too much of the marinade to get on here. There's enough already adhering to the chicken and to the onions. So this step's a little bit messy, but it's well worth it. It smells so fragrant already, it's going to be really amazing once it's cooking. I did a lot of onions because my family loves them. If you don't prefer them, you certainly don't have to cook as many of them. If you look up this recipe on my blog, Constantly Cooking, you'll notice that there's also some great spicy potatoes that you can make with it. But today we're going to make a green salad instead. So now we're going to put this in the oven for about 1/2 hour at 400 degrees, flipping the chicken once during the cooking and giving the onions a little bit of a toss. And then when it comes out of the oven, we'll assemble our beautiful shawarma platter. All right, we've taken the chicken and onions out of the oven and it looks absolutely delicious and smells even better. It's always a good idea to check the temperature of meat before you proceed, and I really like just a quick instant read thermometer. And what you're looking for is 165 Fahrenheit or better. and just takes a minute to read. It's a lot easier than the old-fashioned, I'll call them analog thermometers that took a long time. Yeah, this is at 167 and I've checked the others, so we're good to go. So now all we're going to do is slice the chicken thinly. When you get shawarmas from a proper shawarma palace, they shave it off a spit of meat and they can get little thin slices. So we're just going to kind of replicate that here. And don't be alarmed if you see that the inside appears a little pink. The spices can impact the interior color of the chicken, but as long as you've used your thermometer, then you know that you're good to go. I like red onions for this dish because they are so much more colorful than an ordinary cooking onion, and they also soften very quickly in the oven. All right, there we go. We'll just clear the decks here. So it's a great idea to assemble a platter with all the elements of this meal. As you can see here, we've got our chicken and onions. I've added some fresh pita bread, some parsley that we're going to put on top to add a little pop of color and fresh flavor. I've also purchased at my local shawarma spot some of their amazing garlic sauce, and I highly recommend going to a spot near you and picking that up. I've tried making it at home and I haven't cracked the code on that one yet. But it's easy to go and buy it, and it keeps in the fridge for about 2 weeks. I've also got some hummus because that's a great fit with this meal. And last but not least, we've got some pickled turnip, and this is little white turnips, not rutabaga, which is yellow that you might know of, pickled in an ordinary brine with a few slices of beet for color. And that's a staple in Lebanese food as well. And you can find a recipe for the pickled turnips at constantlycooking.com. So here we have our beautiful shawarma platter, and I know that everyone's going to be eager to dive in. Today I'm going to show you a great grain salad to be made with cracked wheat, also known as frika, which is very similar to bulgur. Whatever kind of cracked wheat you use, know that it'll be a delicious salad that's hearty and nutritious. If you need a gluten-free option, quinoa would be perfect. A great way to make salads that are hearty, flavorful, and really satisfying is by using grains. I really like quinoa, in this case red because it's prettier, barley, cracked wheat, or kavina nuda, also called rice of the prairies. All of them are excellent for delicious, nutritious grain salads. I've got another Middle Eastern inspired dish for you now, using one of my favorite things, which is cracked green wheat. It's also called frika or freaky, depending on how you like to pronounce it. It's very similar to other green wheat or cracked wheats like bulgur, which you might know from tabbouleh. So we're going to assemble it in a great grain salad that's going to be hearty and delicious, and the flavors would actually go really well with a shawarma platter. So we're going to start by making our dressing. What I've done is I've got 2 cloves of garlic in here with 1/3 cup of olive oil, and I've cooked it in the microwave for about 45 seconds, and the reason for that is it softens the harshness of the garlic. A lot of people don't like that raw garlic taste in a salad, so it just kind of mellows it a little bit. Next up, we're going to juice some lemons. If you've watched the show before, you might notice that I really, really like fresh lemons. You can't beat them for flavor. The bottled juice just doesn't compare. If you live in a place where it's hard to get fresh lemons, then you probably don't have a choice, but if you can get them, it's worth the little bit extra. And think of this as being a way to add nutrition as well as flavor to your dishes, because it's all that great vitamin C. So we want about 1/4 cup of lemon. This one's really, really juicy. One way to tell when you're buying a lemon is to give it a bit of a squeeze, and if it yields, then you know that it's nice and juicy inside, it's fully ripened. That's not quite 1/4 cup, so we're going to do a little bit more. There's lots of different ways to extract juice. I really like this wooden lemon reamer because it's very efficient and it's super quick to wash up. There we go. Okay. And as I mentioned before, we want to add our seasonings to the acid, not to the oil. So we've got some salt and pepper, and then here we've got some freshly ground coriander seeds. Very different from ground coriander if you buy it. This is really lemony and bright, and it adds an amazing flavor. And the seeds are super easy to crush with a mortar and pestle or with the bottom of a drinking glass. So we're just going to give that a shake. Get it nicely infused and help the salt dissolve a little. And then we will combine it with the oil and garlic. And that's how simple the dressing is. We've got so many great flavors happening in the salad that we really don't need to get into a dressing that's any more elaborate than that. So we're going to let that sit for a few minutes while we prepare the other ingredients for our salad. First up is some chopped celery. I find that people don't use celery as much as they used to. When I was growing up, my mom even made a dish of baked celery with marjoram. It's pretty weird. I don't recommend going to Google that. Sorry, Mom. But fresh, raw celery is such a great way to add crunch and flavor to a dish. So you want to chop it up fairly small so that it's consistent with the small texture of the grain. You can get away with bigger vegetables if you're making a pasta salad, for example, if your pasta shape is bigger. It's kind of nice to have things in proportion. If you start making grain salads, or if you're familiar with them already, you'll probably notice that they are a lot more satisfying than a pasta salad. And that's because pasta is typically made from white flour, and they're just not as hearty as grains. If you're making this particular salad and you need a gluten-free option, quinoa would be my best choice for this. There, we wanted about a cup of celery, so I think we're good. So we're just going to add that to our bowl. Pull that over here. If you are not a fan of celery, you just want something else for crunch, you could definitely do green or red pepper, for example. And we're also going to throw in some chickpeas. So we've got a lot of protein going on in this salad, which is great. When you buy canned chickpeas, you have to make sure you rinse them well when they come out of the can. And I like to pick off any of the little skins that might be lurking loose off the chickpeas. Okay, and the other thing that we're going to be putting on it is some fresh, flavorful herbs and also green onion. So we'll just move this to the side for a moment while we finish chopping our herbs. That's another thing that I don't mind spending money on is fresh herbs. I find that in the summer, of course, we've got them in our gardens, but in the winter, for the little bit extra that it costs, it's such a flavor booster. And if you plan your menus well, you can pretty much use up the bunch that you buy, or I often share them with my neighbors. I'll let them know I've got mint on hand or cilantro, and we just make sure it doesn't go to waste. There's our parsley, and now, as I mentioned, mint. Mint is a great thing in Middle Eastern cuisine. You'll see it a lot in Moroccan dishes and so on. And it doesn't really matter which kind of mint you buy, whether it's spearmint or peppermint. And just take the leaves off the stems. It's so fragrant. It smells great. A couple more leaves, that should be good. And again, you just want to chop them up fairly finely. And I try to make it about the same quantity of each of these 3 flavor agents. It's a good idea to chop the herbs right before you need them because they will start to discolor a little bit when they sit. And the same goes for assembling the salad. You want to kind of prep everything as much as you can ahead of time and then just put it together at the last minute. So we're going to start by adding our dressing now. We may not need it all, so I'll start there and give it a stir. It looks like such a humble little salad, but it delivers just fantastic flavor. And now we're going to put half of the herbs on and stir it in, and then we'll put the other half on top. This would be a great picnic salad for the summertime because the dressing doesn't need to be refrigerated, so you could have it out at room temperature for a little bit of time and you wouldn't have any food safety issues. Okay, and Now we'll put the rest of our herbs on top, just kind of scatter them on. If you'd like, you can serve this salad with a wedge of lemon for people to squeeze on top of their own servings for one last hit of that bright punch of flavor. So we'll cut a couple of wedges right now. Nice to pick the seeds out if people are going to be squeezing them so they don't have to pick them out on their own plates. And we'll just kind of fan those out on the side. There we go. Our beautiful, healthy freekeh or cracked wheat salad is ready to be devoured. Have you heard of banoffee pie? It's a delightfully decadent combination of fluffy whipped cream, bananas, and dulce de leche caramel sauce tucked into a graham cracker crust. It's one of my favorite desserts, and I've come up with a no-bake version that offers every ounce of the pie's deliciousness. It's easy to make, and it's as pretty as it is scrumptious. Parfaits are a great dessert because they're just so festive. They look really pretty and they usually taste fantastic. For this one, we're going to combine just a couple simple ingredients and it comes together beautifully. First off, we'll talk about the sauce because that's really the most important part. And the best thing for this recipe, this banoffee pie parfait, is canned dulce de leche sauce, which is basically cooked down sweetened condensed milk. In my recipe on my blog, constantlycooking.com, you'll find the instructions. If you can't buy the pre-made dulce de leche, you can cook down your own can of sweetened condensed milk, or you can just buy a jar of caramel sauce like ice cream topping and so on, and that's almost the same. So the first thing we're going to do is assemble what would be the equivalent of the graham cracker crust if we were making a real pie. So we've got graham crumbs here, and we're just going to add some melted butter. Give it a quick stir, and then we'll be able to set it aside. We're not adding any sweetener to the crust because the graham crumbs do have a little bit of sweetness themselves, and the dulce de leche sauce is so sweet that we just don't need to be adding more sugar to this. And you want it to be kind of clumpy. It's just going to be a really nice textural counterpoint to the soft whipped cream and the bananas. So speaking of whipped cream, that's next up. And I recommend using real whipped cream that you whip yourself instead of this aerosol can. If you don't have time to do the whipped cream, absolutely you can use the can, but be aware that because of the way it's aerated as you dispense it, the parfaits are going to deflate a lot more quickly, so they may sink down in whatever vessel you've assembled them in. So that's the advantage of using real whipped cream. So we're just going to whip this up, and again, we're not adding any sugar or vanilla to the cream because everything else is plenty sweet. You may have noticed I've been turning the bowl in one direction. My grandmother used to tell me the only way to beat cream or egg whites was to consistently beat in one direction. I don't know if it's true, but it stuck with me, and that's the only way I can do it now. You want this to be really thick. Although it's thickened enough to maybe serve on pie, it's not enough for this parfait. So we're going to keep on going. We want it to come out in stiff peaks when we lift the beaters out of the bowl. Now we're going to check it again, and that's looking good. All right, so now it's time to assemble our parfaits. This is something that you'll need to do kind of at the last minute before serving, but you could certainly whip the cream ahead of time, cover it and refrigerate it. You could definitely make the cookie crumbs ahead of time, and you could even slice the bananas, which we're going to do in a moment. So to make your parfaits, you really have a lot of options when it comes to glassware. I see I got some whipped cream on the inside there. I've brought back from my parents' home in Nova Scotia these parfait glasses, which were a really special item that didn't get used very often when I was a kid. My mom used to do these funky jello parfaits in it that I'm not sure I'd enjoy now, but I loved them as a kid. So those are super pretty, but this dessert also would look great layered up in mason jars, which is very on trend right now. You could use neat little cocktail glasses like this, or even pretty champagne glasses. So it's up to you, regular wine glass, and heck, it would even be good just in a bowl all dumped together because it's that delicious. So to make our parfaits, we're going to start by putting some of the crumbs in the bottom. Again, we're representing the crust with this. So a good generous spoonful in each of our dishes. I'll move these into the middle. And then we're going to add some bananas. It's called banoffee, as I said, because it's banana and toffee. And you want your bananas to be ripe, but not overly ripe. And you can just slice them right into your containers. You'll notice I just pulled off this string. If you've ever wondered about banana strings, because I know I did and I looked it up, it's actually the nutrition vehicle that gets all the nutrition into the banana as it's growing. Who knew? So we're going to slice up a little bit of banana into each dish. I usually put a lot of banana because I really like bananas. This is a great way to get kids to eat fruit because, of course, there's so much other stuff happening in here. Okay, and now we're going to add a little bit of our dulce de leche or caramel sauce. When I say a little bit, I mean a lot, because why not? It's dessert, right? You don't have to have it every day. So you really want to drizzle it on so it coats the bananas and starts to sneak down below. You can put it in a jug to pour it. You might find that a little bit easier. I just wanted to be able to show you the can. There we go. All right, and now our whipped cream. And you don't have to be too precise about how you assemble this. It's pretty free form. If you wanted, it'd be super fun to even set it up like a little buffet station so people could build their own parfaits, and that would be a lot of fun for a dinner party or even for a kid's party. And then we're going to go on with the graham crumbs again. A little bit less on the second layer. And more banana. My mom doesn't like bananas, but I bet you she'd like them if she ate them in this format. And more sauce. You'll notice this is just a little bit darker and richer in color than traditional caramel sauce, and that's part of what makes it so delicious. Trying to avoid getting it all over my hands. And then, of course, we finish with more whipped cream. You can put more sauce on top, but I really like to finish with the whipped cream because it just looks so clean and pretty on top. And depending on your vessels, you can use more layers if you wish, or even just one layer of each. It's really pretty freeform that way. And then if you're fortunate enough to have these great parfait spoons, you can tuck them in. Makes it kind of look like an old-fashioned restaurant treat. And dessert is ready to be enjoyed. I hope these 3 recipes have you excited about the possibilities for a fast, flavorful dinner. This Lebanese-inspired roasted chicken, the frika salad with lots of fresh herbs, and beautiful banoffee pie parfaits are some of my family's new favorites, and I bet if you try them, they'll become your family's favorites too.